Hey there, everybody. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of Friday at the Funhouse with Martin Popoff. What's happening, Martin? You ready for
Yeah,
part two of our look
much.
at
Yeah,
band logos?
definitely. Yeah, this is going to be a weird one because I guess we're in complaining mode, right?
We're in
So
complaining mode. These are the ones that don't
yeah,
work for us.
yeah,
So last week you had the great ones that we love. These are the ones we kind of
yeah,
don't love, and we'll tell you why we don't love them.
yeah,
Some of mine are like they're not completely awful, but they don't really represent anything. They don't
yeah,
represent the band. They don't represent the album. It's just like, and sometimes a certain type of band deserves a certain type of logo, as we kind of talked about in episode one. And some of these logos for me are just like, well, you couldn't come up with something that really represent what your music is all about, because that ain't it,
yeah,
right? I mean, that's
yeah.
I think the biggest complaint I have about some of
Yeah,
these.
I think that's a theme with mine as well. I've definitely got one that I go, why did I put this in here? But I'll explain that as we go. So
Exactly. All right, I'll have Martin kick us off with his number 10.
all right. So my number 10 is let's see, it's this one right here. Pat Travers. Check that out. That's Pat Travers Radioactive World Tour 81 hat. But there he is doing the logo without the word band. Usually it's like this,
Yeah.
Pat Travers Band. And, obviously right off the bat, he's saddled with a ridiculous band name. I hate when bands do that, right? The Pat Travers Band. It's not even the Pat Travers Band. It's just Pat Travers Band, right? But then, he's got a logo that's kind of, it just looks a little bit almost too amateurish for a major label artist, I'd say.
Come on, Martin, you could say it. It looks disco-y.
Yeah, you're right. Disco-y, exactly. Good point. Yeah, it does. It looks like KC and the Sunshine Band or something.
It totally
right?
does. Yep.
Yeah. And it's kind of like the proportions are all weird, and it's got the big descenders on it and whatever. And I do like the red and the red and the yellow theme in that, because it tends to go, eventually you get caught up in the whole Pat Travers summer feel, right?
Yeah.
With the Go For What You Know live album with the outdoor shots, just like Foghat Live or whatever. I mean, what's more summer than the band sitting on a street like that, sunbathing on the street, right? Actually, that's a little bit like Foghat Fool for the City, isn't it? We got a couple Foghat, with Roger, fishing out of the manhole there, right?
Yep.
So it's funny. So you got a couple Foghat things going on there, but so yeah, it does have the heat in the street, crash and burn, go for what you know kind of thing with those colors, which is kind of neat. But yeah, you're right, disco-y logo, and just kind of amateurish looking. But there you go. There he is.
I love Pat. Man, that hat is god awful.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be caught dead wearing that bright red and white.
Red and white, yeah. Radioactive.
Like you put it on your head. You put it on your head before, and almost like exploded. I was like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah.
Couldn't think of any better colors than that. I mean,
Yeah.
Man, oh man. All right, so kind of what I talked about before, an example of a band whose music warrants something different than what they decide to go with. And I'm sure there's going to be folks out there who like this logo. I never really dug it, but I'm going to show you two examples of one, the way they had it for many years, and then recently how they've kind of tweaked it a little bit, which I think is for the better. So Magnum. I don't know. I mean, these great Rodney Matthews album covers just to me always deserve something a little better than that. It looks sloppy to me. And it's missing the, I mean, this is like this great pomp, AOR, prog, melodic rock band. And I always thought that just looked like something I would have drawn when I was like 8. And, I don't know, it just doesn't really match the album covers or the band's music. However, I think they got it right recently, because now this is what they're going with now. And you see it has the sword kind of going through the M, and the lettering is a little bit different. I kind of dig that more.
Yeah.
It's still not great, but I think they're on the right track.
Yeah, that first one's almost like they're going too far with the pointiness and the jaggedness. And if you look in the G, everything gets a little bit, there's too much traffic right in the middle, right? They should have simplified that out a little.
Yep.
And took a little bit of the point off or whatever. So it could have been improved, but it's like, oh, let's just go for it, right?
Yeah, and I don't mind that too much.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
Yeah, pretty cool. All right, nice. Okay, my next choice, I only have one prop here that I brought out. And it's a very little prop, a little cassette of Piper. Obviously that it has the one thing, haha, it's got the little it does have the little trumpet in the middle going across from the dot in the eye, but it's just too kind of goofy and feminine looking for the band. It's the proportions are all really weird. This is the era of the stars and the angel and the Kiss logos and stuff like that. I don't think it's a very good job they did on this. It's old fashioned, it's kind of roundy. Just doesn't look dramatic like obviously the band is not a heavy band. Obviously they would have been a much bigger band had they been as heavy as we all thought they were when we were buying these records, right? 5 long-haired guys or whatever. But the irony of Piper is that when Billy goes solo, he's actually heavier than the band was, right? Which is kind of odd, but and just completely dominates that cover, that album cover. Which is kind of from there up, right? That's the album cover of the original vinyl. It's just
great band though, great songs.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have bought that based on that logo.
Yeah. It would make you think that it's not that heavy, which I guess is correct. Maybe they didn't want a heavy logo, right? I've heard bands say that as well too, right? We didn't want a heavy name, we didn't want a heavy logo because we didn't want to be associated with heavy metal. So
yeah. All right. Saga.
All right. Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of people out there who really dig this logo. I just never have. And I guess it's, we talked about in the first episode where you have a band name that's pretty short and how, UFO or Yes was able to do something really cool with that, short band name. And here you got 4 letters. And again, props, I guess, for using it throughout their career, usually always the same color in red there. I don't know how well it really personifies what Saga is all about.
Yeah.
They're kind of like a futuristic poppy prog band. I don't get that from that logo at all. You have these great album covers, all with these insect creatures and stuff, and then you got boom, just that. It's almost like it was just stamped there, right? And I don't know. I just never dug it. And it just, to me, doesn't really do much for the image, the name of the band, their music. I don't know. Your thoughts on this? It just doesn't do anything for me. I always thought
totally agree.
They
with 4 letters like that, 2 of them are the same letter. They could have made an amazing logo out of that. That red, that brings up a point. I mean, I came from the print industry a long time ago. Long story, but so I was kind of involved in printing, and there are these cheap colors that printers have by the bucket loads, fire engine red, reflex blue, black. So I've always had it in my mind. I don't like the Buffalo Bills colors. I don't like the New York Rangers colors. I don't like red, white, and blue because I don't like these colors that I know are the cheap default colors. So when I see a red like that, it's like, could you not have come up with a less pedestrian color kind of thing? And a lot of bands kind of go that way, right?
Yeah.
But in printing, a lot of times, it's certain things were cheaper when you would just go with the kind of the regular cheap colors that everybody had lying around, kind of thing, rather than mixing it, having a proper Pantone mix of a color and all that. So, yeah. All right. Speaking of exactly this topic, my next choice is, let's start with this one. Def Leppard. So Def Leppard, saddled with a band, a terrible band name. For all Joe Elliott's complaining that we weren't part of the new wave of British heavy metal, I'm sure they probably all have sat around and said, I wish we could have changed our name early on and had something better, right? Because it's ridiculous, right? With the weird spelling and the haha, it's kind of an alternate Led Zeppelin, blah, blah, blah. So the logo is terrible. And then what they had to do is they stretched it out. They just took those spiky letters and just ran it all together like that in that horrible yellow and that horrible red that we just talked about. And has nothing to do with leopards. Leopard is an animal. It's round and it's flesh and blood and all that. Yet this is spiky and computery. It's got nothing to do with kind of an animal, right? So yeah, you see this all the time, and it just annoys me. just like the productions of all their albums after Pyromania annoys me, right? So yeah, the colors, and it's almost like they double down on those crappy colors for the logo, and they just spread it all over all their records, and everything is primary yellow and blue and red and blah blah blah. It's just so tiring on the eyes because it's just so childish looking, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm never a big fan of that logo at all, or the band name, but oh well. Queensryche.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean, again, this is a band that deserves a wild, original, very cool looking logo. And if you look across most of their albums, in fact, they're another one of those bands that didn't really keep a consistent logo. I think this is the one that showed up the most, but it's just, again, they got, over the two dots over the Y. Let's kind of do what Motorhead did, right? And here you have the white and the red. Again, this colors that just don't work. And they varied this slightly on their albums from record to record, but it just looks to me really lazy. It's like they didn't, you've got this great music and this band that's just so beloved, and yet they never came up with an iconic logo. Not even close.
Yeah.
Not even close.
Yeah, and the R is kind of lost in it, and just the whole idea of reversing the colors like that is jarring. It makes it look like two words, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Don't like it.
Yeah. What a horrible album cover too. Like go right through the whole rest of the covers. Like,
oh yeah.
Man.
Yeah. Great
that
album. But
that album cover always reminded me of Wasp Headless Children. It's kind of the same sort of thing, right?
Yeah, true.
Yeah. All right, this next one is I picked this, and then I go, why did I pick this? This is actually kind of a cool logo, but I'll tell you why I picked it. Scorpions, Animal Magnetism. So there you go. Not Animal Magnetism, Scorpions. So there we go. There it is on Love Drive. So the funny thing about this is, obviously I did a Scorpions book, and I do remember the guys telling me, like, I remember asking where they got that. And yeah, I believe, if they're getting the story absolutely right. I can't remember who it was said this, if it was one person or two, or if it was absolutely sure. But the idea is that they actually did get that from the iconic James Caan 1974, I believe it is, Rollerball movie, right? That awesome movie. Remember the massive roller skating, rollerball craze at the time? Like,
oh yeah.
There were a lot of broken bones in kids after that movie came out, because everybody was putting on roller skates and smashing into each other for a few years, right?
Yeah.
But so they actually did get it from that, which is I guess one of the reasons I consider it and not great. But the other reason I consider it great is that it was very rarely ever this type style was very rarely ever used again by anybody else. So that kind of made it kind of cool. But the other thing is, there's always this two things. There's always that controversy. Are they the Scorpions or Scorpions, right? Us deep fans, it's got to be just Scorpions. You can't put a the in front of it ever, right? But try write it in a book or in an article, and you always have to put the there, right?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So, and also I think it's a little bit too futuristic, computery, matching, Scorpions being an animal kind of thing. It is futuristic and computery because Rollerball was a dystopian in the future thing, movie about, this great sport in the world where these guys are killing each other out on the roller rink, right? So yeah, there you go. But my other story about Scorpions is, or that logo is that when I was a kid, I had the really decked out room, like with the posters all the way around, cut out for the light switches and the power receptacles, all that. But for this, I actually took cardboard and white gloss paper, and I cut out individual Scorpions letters and hung them by fishing wire individually, two pieces of fishing line, right in the window. So the light would shine through the window when the sun, was beating down on the window in my room, and it would silhouette these letters. And then eventually I even strung Christmas lights around them hanging up there. So that was my centerpiece of my decoration.
Wow.
Individual scorpions letters cut out with fishing line, right in front of the window, sort of thing. So
That's pretty.
how
You were a
much I
creative
like
kid there, Martin.
it. Yeah.
Pretty cool. Yeah, me and scissors didn't really get along too well back in the day. I don't just take posters and just tape them up on the wall.
Yeah.
That's the extent of my creativity back then. Yeah, Mr. Big.
Oh. Yeah.
I mean, do I need to say much? I mean, every album just got that. And it's like, and again, they chose to put it on top of each other rather than going across. I don't know. And it's all in caps. I guess it's big letters.
Yeah.
Big band. Not the band's, it's not like it's a huge band. It's not like, I don't know. I just find it very puzzling. Again, what do you really do with a name like that? I don't know. I don't have an alternative, but I just know that I don't like this one.
Yeah. True. Well, here's a quiz for the deep music fans. Following Mr. Big, I just decided that I'm going to go with this one, Tank. And why I'm going with this after Mr. Big is because instantly in my head, I realized that the original UK band, Mr. Big, kind of their logo was a little bit like the Tank logo.
Oh, there you go.
Remember that old Mr. Big band? Those, I think you could only get those records on import. They never made any of a dent anywhere. They weren't very good albums. They were just kind of general rock and roll-y albums, right? But I think they kind of did a little bit of this with their logo when they did their Mr. Big, right? Anyways, don't like this logo. Don't like those letters. I've never liked letters that are splayed out large at the bottom like that. It always looked kind of cheesy. I don't like the way they've got the just the block letters are kind of clunky on it. The way that it's usually, I don't think it's always combined with the Tank, but the way that it's combined with the Tank looks kind of dumb too. Love the band to death. This is the Polish box set that had everything in it, right? They're not all lined up properly there, but it makes a Tank, right? So this is you get everything all in one shot. Good old Algie Ward. Never liked that. And the other thing about it is, if you notice, there's no hole in the A. It's just,
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah, it's just kind of a mess. Just never liked that logo. And the colors were never very good on the album covers too. They were very lurid, right?
Yeah.
And then they got the second album is probably my favorite album, just the band, that not great band shot of them sitting on there. I think that's got yellow on it as well. So
yeah, that's a good choice. I was never a fan of that logo. I always thought that they should have done something to create something really cool within a Tank shot, kind of like in the first part we talked about Triumph, right? Had that kind of triangle thing, and that just doesn't work. Yeah,
and again, right? We got a band with 4 letters, so there's so much a great designer could have done with that, right?
Yeah. Oh well. All right, new wave of British heavy metal time once again. Tigers of Pantang.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, it's a long band name for one, so I guess there's only so much you can do. And they've kept this logo kind of consistent. I guess they're going with that kind of Asian style, lettering. I don't know. And again, another one of those bands that have some really cool album covers. And then to me, the logo just is like meh. That's the best thing I could think of. MEH. It's like that's kind of all you can do there. I don't know. And again, some people probably really dig it. I never have. I thought that their albums deserved something that had a little more punch to it, and maybe instead of putting it long ways, they could have kind of bunched it up a little bit for more of an impact. I don't know.
Yeah,
because you got I think if they had a really cool the Tigers big letters and then Pantang underneath it, that fits very neatly into this whole section right here. Yeah. Same thing with all their albums. So I don't know.
Yeah, I can't remember the story of what that is. I think it's from some fantasy story or something, that Tigers of Pantang. But I guess that's got that Asian flair. And then also this was the time of the Japanese shirts, the Land of the Rising Sun shirts, the white with the big red dot on it. I think there was a band called Taipan. And then also you got Tokyo Blade, and you got Ride doing Tokyo Rose and all that kind of stuff, right? There was so much of that going on at the time. So I guess that's what they were lining up with. Yeah, it's a tough one to do anything with, that's for sure. Okay, my next choice. This is a perfect one for this episode. Derringer. So Derringer, there's your Sweet Evil album, the amazing second Derringer album, and there is their logo, and it literally looks like a country western belt buckle.
Yeah,
right? It's so country western. I had a shirt with this when they did the reunion show. I saw the first reunion show they ever did in 35 years. They played Buffalo, the Bears Den, and it looked kind of cool because it was actually all. I got to find that shirt. It was all actually embroidered on there nicely, right? But it's a pretty god awful logo for a hard rock band. It's even worse. Actually, there it is on the back.
Yeah.
And it's and on the first album, it's literally like kind of like whitey on blue. It looks like a country rock album. It looks like an Eagles album, right? Yeah. So it's just way too it's way too country for what they are. But this is an incredible album. It's just such an Aerosmithy album. Jack Douglas, they're on CBS, right? They're on Blue Sky. CBS, 1977.
And they look so badass on that cover. It's like it deserved a badass logo.
Yeah. And the album's called Sweet Evil, right? Yeah. And even Derringer itself, I guess I neglect to mention that, it is an old firearm, right? So it's kind of maybe that's what the Derringer, gun logo looks like. I don't know. Yeah. But obviously I guess there is the tie-in with that. Obviously, the name of the leader of the band is Rick Derringer, but just not a great logo for a hard rock band.
All right, going to Sweden here. Kind of a stoner doom band, been around for a while. Never liked this logo. I love most of their album covers, and I just thought the logo was always the worst thing about it. Grand Magus, however they say their name. Wolf God. I mean, look at that. Awesome werewolf beastie there, right? And then you get this weird typeface that they have on all their albums, and I'm like, it's just, to me, it just seems kind of lazy and deserves to be more prominent and something that brings a little bit more impact to their music, and I just don't think that does it.
Yeah,
no good.
Well, that's caused me to call an audible on what my next one's going to be as well, because it goes with that, and for the same reason as that one, Dio. And the reason is that I really don't think you can take that Gothic font and do it in all caps, even if it's just 3 letters like that. I don't think it looks very good. And on the Grand Magus, it's obviously way longer, and you've got just all these caps. And that type style is not meant to have those caps all run smooshed into each other, because all the little pointy bits run into each other, and it's too complicated, right? That's why when you see Judas Priest do it on Sad Wings and Sin After Sin, it looks really cool. Because it's upper and lower. So I think Dio has that same problem. And also this is kind of like an awkward hand-drawn version of it. And then they just kind of stuck with it. And, if you look at that, the letters aren't even all the same size. It looks like kind of an error. The D is just only a little tiny bit bigger than the other ones. They don't even seem to be lined up on the same line. And this one really looks drawn on there. And then, you've got them, when they put it on Sacred Heart, it's just no improvement whatsoever. There it is, just hanging around up top. Same crappy, boring pedestrian red, and just that awkward, oversized D. You can barely even read what it says. It looks like an E in the middle. You've got different thicknesses of the ascenders on it, right? Look how thick the the ascenders are on the D versus the O.
Yep.
Big difference. So it's just kind of botched and messy and clumsy. There you go.
And, we talked in episode 1 about being like in school and drawing all the logos of our favorite bands on our binders and book covers and stuff. Do you remember? I remember specifically, because I used to do that all the time, loving Dio to death and that band, and thinking, God, this is not a good logo to try and recreate and draw, right?
Exactly. I don't recall once drawing that logo. And UFO hundreds of times. Motorhead, Whitesnake. I learned how to draw that, although I'd have to look at the Whitesnake to do that one. But yeah, so many of them. Maiden, right?
Yep.
It's funny. I used to even do one day I'll show you my scribbles, but I even used to come up with, beautiful looking logo album title things for songs. And they never did that in the old days, right? I mean, you sometimes have something fairly fancy for album title, right? And logo, obviously, band title is the upper level, but I used to do that for songs. I looked at some of these. That's really funny, right? You know, just putting a lot of thought into band name, song, right?
Exactly.
So yeah.
Being creative at a young age, right? I don't know if enough kids do that these days, right? Is anybody putting like band logos on their books anymore? Probably not. That's like a lost art from the late 70s and the 80s.
Well, they don't even teach cursive in school anymore.
Right. So yeah, who's drawing anything?
You don't even
right?
handwrite in school anymore. Like
Yeah.
kids come up and they just, you know, if and when they have to pick up a pen, it's usually kind of a messy version of printing now.
Yeah. Nobody's drawing anything anymore, unfortunately. Well, it's a lost art. Tesla.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I give him a little bit of kudos for doing the kind of like half wavy S there in the middle. The rest of it, and you know, again, they use it on all their albums, so they've kept it consistent. But I don't know, just kind of like non-exciting to me. And this is a pretty exciting band.
Yeah.
And again, I know we're coming into a time period here. This is like, you know, the mid 80s where you're seeing less interesting logos from bands, but I don't know. I would have loved to have seen a little bit more creativity here. This to me is just really, really basic in a big way.
Yeah. Yeah. Didn't do much with it other than the S, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. My next choice is Gillan. Love the band to death. Obviously, you and I did a show on Gillan, right? It was a lot of fun. But never liked this logo. Again, we're back to Fire Engine Red, blah, 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 boring. Here is Ian actually signing it. So it's a little bit like the way he signs, but obviously it's changed a little bit over the years. That actually has Ian Gillan in it. And it's a pretty neat autograph, that's for sure.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But no, as a logo, never was crazy about that. You know, Ian's probably more or less, you know, always been Mr. I'm not heavy metal. So I could imagine his instincts were, you know, I don't want to do, you know, a typical heavy metal logo. You know, here he is in the new wave British heavy metal as well. There it is, plastered on the Glory Road album. What a great album cover that is, eh? Big red on black, Gillan with the word Glory Road up in the corner. You could have done something with Road or something. There's the other not great album cover. Didn't you have this one on one of our album cover shows?
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
Awful. Yeah.
Yeah, there's the big, huge logo again, insisting it's in red, right? Yeah. You know, red with a little bit of black. Here's the original Japanese album. And I think that's, you know, boring as it is, that's a darn good album cover and a cool use. That looks better than the other Gillan logo, right? So that's a good shot of it. And there it is in patch form on Double Trouble, right? There's your iconic new wave British heavy metal patch, right? Which I believe that might be the same patch. One of the singles I bought at the time, I think it was Sleeping on the Job, was one of those singles that came with a patch. And I think I got a Gillan patch, and I think it looked just like that.
Just like that, yeah.
From the Sleeping on the Job single. There you go, Gillan.
It's a true story. A couple of years ago, because of course I'm always looking to buy more shirts, right? So I'm like, God, would love to have a Gillan shirt, right? So I'm like searching all over the internet to try and find it. You know, maybe one of the decent looking album covers, and they're all pretty bad. But I was like, I just wanted a Gillan shirt. The only one I could find, and I think it was from some seller in Japan or wherever it was, and all it was a black shirt with the red ugly logo on it, and I was like, yeah, not so much.
Right, yeah.
Do I really want this like red like signature thing of Gil? People are gonna be like, what the hell is on his shirt? I'm like, don't ask. So yeah, I opted not to. I was like, oh well. So much.
It's not the most exciting last name for a band name either, right? You know, no, Van Halen sounds a little more majestic, right? Vandenberg, right? Or whatever, right?
Gillan,
you know, Derringer is kind of cool, but Gillan, you know.
Yeah, great band though. Yeah. Great band. All right, so I think out of all of these, this is the one that has me the least excited, and I really love this band a lot, and they have great album covers, but their logo is just boring as anything. Epica. I mean, just this blocky, just kind of like looks like a tombstone inscription. I mean, just like I just don't like it. Every album's got it on it, and again, this big, grandiose, heavy symphonic metal band, with extreme metal elements and whatnot. You'd expect something grandiose, and that's what we get. Album after album after album. I don't understand it, but whatever.
Wow.
They don't pay me to do these things, so
yeah. Again, not a lot of letters, and
yeah.
you can almost see a little bit looking at that album cover, and I'm sure a lot of them, because there's so much heavy illustration these days, right? That there's so much busyness elsewhere. It almost reminds you of like when a band's putting together a mix, right? And they've put all these cool instruments in and stuff, and then they realize they got to take things out so other things can be heard, right?
Right.
So you kind
Well,
of
that's a good point. So basically, they're emphasizing what's on the cover more than the logo. It's like the logo is secondary. Yeah, whatever. People know who it is. That's fine. We want to accentuate all this other stuff. And I get that. But it just still, you want to identify with that logo.
Yeah.
And I have a hard time identifying with this. As much as I love this band, it's just like the logo just does absolutely zilch for me.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So my last choice, or no, I got two left. So let's do this one next. So my next choice is kind of an interesting one. I thought Poison. So this one bothers me in a couple of ways. Number one, I've always thought the band name was just so non-hair metal and a little negative, and certainly very negative for the Happy Meal music that these guys play, right? They're like the most happy band, the most McDonald's band, Ronald McDonald band on earth almost, right? Van Halen and Poison and maybe Aerosmith, but not even Aerosmith. You literally maybe Kiss a little bit, but even Kiss has negative elements to their visuals. This is good old neon green party time Poison, and they've got this kind of like really violent, dark name of a band. And then their logo is that scary word rendered in their neon green and yellow in this case, and two shades of neon green in that one. And it's also very elegant, which is, even the elegantness kind of goes against the word, and it even goes against the way the band are, because it's not very playful. It's kind of looking really upscale. So I think just everything about this combined is not great. I mean, other than that, the things they've done to the lettering to come up with a custom Poison is kind of cool. But I just think there's just a bunch of incongruence about the whole thing. There you go.
I don't think there's a thing about that band that doesn't annoy me.
Right. Yeah.
I will never understand the appeal of Poison. I just don't get it. I don't.
Yeah, I have a long weird relationship with them, but I mean, I've mentioned it before, but just briefly, I eventually got into them later on. Never liked the early stuff, but once I started interviewing them and having them charm me in interviews and say interesting things, and I realized how super into music they are and all that kind of stuff, and I kind of got it a little more, and I only like kind of the later stuff, and I still don't like the early stuff. So yeah, weird.
Poison. That band is Poison. Sorry, different act. Here's another one that love the band, love a lot of the album covers. Just for me, the logo just doesn't scream enough for me. Toto. Again, we're back to that whole band name with just a few letters that they couldn't do something a little bit more creative with. I think, having the a larger T, having the O's a little smaller, the two T's had the same size. I don't know, might have been a little interesting. Change it up a little bit. As it is, this is just really blocky and plain, and doesn't really deviate much from album to album. And we've shown before, especially on the first episode, where with just a few short letters you can do some really cool things. We've got a bunch of them here today where they just did not do anything really noteworthy with any of them.
Yeah, good choice. Yeah, it's funny. I guess at that point we're kind of moving away from the golden era of logos. I mean, the logo thing really kind of picked up 74 through 77, and Toto's kind of, you're shifting on past that, right? Yeah. They didn't use that on Hydra, right?
No.
No, I don't believe. Yeah. And then they had some other different ones. They had that white album cover, that really kind of impressionistic art
Isolation. Yeah.
cover. Yeah, that one didn't. I don't think so. Okay, so my last choice, I think, is the perfect choice all around in every way for an episode like that, and that would be Anthrax. I really think this is another one of those bands that just kind of had a really crappy logo to begin with. It was horrible looking right from the start, but then they just obstinately stuck with it and decided, we're never going to change it. Oh, we're old school. We're from New York City. We ride the subway, right? So we're just going to keep this old school heavy metal logo. You know, maybe they're thinking it's a little like new wave of British heavy metal or whatever, but they stuck with it and stuck with it and stuck with it. And it's just never looked any good. It never improved. I don't particularly think it ever became iconic. You know, how, certain simple logos. You know, I even think of sometimes I think of like band names that are ridiculous, like the Cars or the Police. Eventually, they become so iconic as band names, you don't even think of Cars or Police when you think of them anymore. You think of the band, right? At least when you're, you know, talking about the band or whatever. So the parallel of that, some logos like Metallica's logo, for example, it wasn't so bad to begin with. It might have been a little simple, but they've worked on it a little over the years, and they've worked it into different things, and they've muted it back or bigger or smaller. And because they're such a massive band, that logo has become iconic. I don't think this one ever crossed over into iconic. It's just too badly done. So there you go. Anthrax, my last choice.
Yeah, you talk about some of those classic thrash bands, and think of Megadeth's logo, fairly good. Exodus is pretty cool. Testament. I mean, they all had that kind of identifiable logo. And while I think that logo you identify with Anthrax, it's not very well done. There's no depth to any of the letters. It's just kind of like, all right, we're gonna try and maybe do something a little more complicated than the Kiss logo and have the things going this way and that way. But it just.
And it's funny you bring up that you make a really good point, because the one that sits in the middle, and why it sits in the middle, is Slayer. So Slayer is as bad as that, but they became a bigger, more iconic band, and it's less letters, and it's not as extreme as that. And they also have the, the old satanic, thing to go with it. Yeah. So when you put it all together, it's okay. And it passes over into that iconic zone, because they're a much more iconic band than Anthrax as well. So at that point, you can take those fewer letters, not as radically done, and work it into some other things. And you go, okay, we'll go with the cheesiness for this because it's the Mighty Slayer.
Yeah, exactly. Good point. All right, so my last choice, this guy is the poster child for this episode, and he's also the poster child if we decide to do a part 3 of bands that just never got it right with any logo that they used. I went and looked at all of the albums of this guy, and it's like, and he'll stick with a couple of them for an album or 2 or 3, and then he'll go to a different one. They all blow. Yngwie Malmsteen.
Oh yeah.
I mean, this is probably, I don't know which is the worst. I had like 3 or 4 different ones that I could have chosen. They're all bad. And just like, I mean, this is like, obviously, we're in like the more modern album designs, and he's not only the album cover's bad, the logo is bad. So it's like, it's not bad enough. It's like everyone has got to have him with his guitar in some stupid pose after another. And I love the guy, but man, these are bad. And then you've got all these different typefaces used on all the album covers. Like I said, he'll stick with one for like 2 albums, then switch it again. This is just one excuse for one of them. I mean, just look at that. It looks like a rehash of stuff we've seen before. It's like a rehash of Rainbow. It's a rehash of Nazareth. It's like, I mean, there's no originality here whatsoever. And just bad album covers, album logos, the whole 9 yards. Great guitar player, but man. Ugh.
Yeah. Couple things there, you bring up Rainbow, and it's like he uses that Gothic lettering so much. It's just screaming to make you compare him to Ritchie Blackmore, which he probably doesn't want done, right? He doesn't.
And he said in interviews he doesn't want people to compare him. So it's like,
yeah, and
look what you're doing.
Yeah. exactly. So you're thinking rainbow the whole time. And the other thing, he does have a problem because it's such a long, complicated name, but he's a guy that could have used something iconic like a Blue Oyster Cult logo or the Slayer thing we just talked about, or the MSG thing, and have this, or the angel, the big A, like something on the side that he uses all the time and incorporates into it. So it's not so much focus on just, I got to do something with my name.
And you notice here, it's just Yngwie Malmsteen. On the early ones, it's got to be Yngwie J. Malmsteen, right?
Yeah.
So you never know what you get.
Malmsteen, think, apostrophe S, Rising Force. And
Right. And you and I talked about, I forget which album it was a while back, where he had like, it was missing an apostrophe. It was like, that's
right.
messy. It just screams to me like they didn't put a lot of thought into this. And again, I know he's on a lot of these, not major labels anymore. It's all these independent record companies and a lot of the stuff he's putting out himself. So I get it, but if you're putting out physical product, you should put a little bit of thought into that, because people are, a lot of times will judge what they see on the outside. And great, we know Yngwie plays guitar, right? It's like that's what you get every album, but put a little something into the rest of it.
He strikes me as the type of guy also that would bully the graphic design people into, this is my idea. This is what I want you to do. Bring this to fruition. And they're going, no, we don't like this idea. I can't do anything with this. No, you have to. I'm Yngwie.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And I'm sure that is the case. And that's probably why he keeps changing. It's like, well, my last idea didn't work. Let's try something new. It's like, dude, all your ideas aren't working. Just like your idea of having you sing lead vocals on your albums now is not the way to do it, but that's just my opinion on that. So anyway, there you have it, everybody. Some band logos, artist logos that we don't really care for too much and wish they would be different. But in the comments below, put some of the logos that you don't like, that you don't think work for those respective bands. And it'll be interesting to see what people come up with. So hope you all enjoyed this. Martin, want to plug your website for your books? I'm sure you got all sorts of great stuff in stock.
Yeah, we got martinpopoff.com for the books. We got the Contrarians YouTube show, and I just had my 100th episode of History in 5 Songs with Martin Popoff. That's a podcast available in 40 odd podcast. Just Google me, you'll find it. History in 5 Songs with
awesome.
Martin Popoff.
What was the topic for the 100th one?
Everybody wanted me to do a questions and answers thing. So they sent a whole bunch of questions through to the Facebook page on various things. And I just went crazy and started going through them. And lo and behold, as soon as I was done, I had an episode that was twice as long as any other episode.
Yep, that is what will happen. As someone who has a lot of experience with doing Q&A shows, man, it's like you open up the floodgates with that. They're fun, but I'll have to check that one out. That should be great. Did you get a lot of good questions at least?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. All sorts of ranking stuff and how do you do work and questions about your favorite book and favorite interviews, all those kind of cool things. So
cool. That's good. Yeah, I'll definitely have to check that out. So everybody make sure you hop on over to Martin's podcast and check that out, as well as the Contrarians, which is also a very fun show. I watched your Patreon show recently. We had all the folks on there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Jamie Laszlo.
Yeah, exactly. I love Jamie.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks everybody for watching. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. Stay tuned for more shenanigans from Martin and myself next Friday. Till then, be safe. Have a good weekend. For Martin Popoff, I am Pete Pardo. Bye-bye.